So we know that the ADHD brain is often considered time blind, that it's hard to really feel time, to allocate time, to, manage what we have to do. I have a few really interesting ideas here too. Being on time, hyperfocus or anxiety, underestimating a task or project time, having things to do, plenty of time but wait for the last minute, sticking with well-intentioned plans I make, getting distracted. Hi, Marlo from Saskatchewan, underestimating time needed to complete a task, not keeping my word to myself, being late to everything as a result of believing I can squeeze more in, underestimating how long things will take. And Carolina, your son has zero concept of time. 5 minutes, 5 hours, it's all the same thing. Yes. Danielle, hello from northern Kansas. And Christy, you can be up hours before I'm supposed to be somewhere and still be late. I hear you. So for me, my challenges with time are that I overestimate my ability to do something in a given amount of time because I'm underestimating how long things take. And I also overestimate my capacity to do things because I can get a lot accomplished. So I'm kind of always walking around with this sense of like, I don't have enough time. I'm not able to complete what I need to do in the given amount of time. I'm mad at myself because then I run late. Like yesterday, I had a hair appointment to get my hair cut, and I knew it was at 1:30. I had it in my phone at 1:30, and I was running a group until 1:15. And somehow when the group ended, in my head, 1:30 became 2 o'clock. Like, I have no idea how that happened. And then I got a text from my stylist like, hey, don't we have an appointment today? And I was like, oh my goodness, oh my gosh, yes, I'm on my way. And of course I was late, by almost a half hour, which meant, that she had to rush and I felt guilty. It was just so annoying. And it's hard. It's like, I feel like, well, what is wrong with me? Like, I have my time timer. It's right here. There it is. I have my phone. It's right here. And still, it can happen. So I thought today we would spend some time talking about time. And it's some of the things that I've written about, and also things that I've been thinking about time, but I haven't had a chance to write about yet, which of course is very funny. So here we are. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a downloadable on setting up routines, because routines are so helpful for people who live with ADHD in terms of managing time. So that's the first thing that I want to say. The second thing is you have a lot of comments here, so I'm going to check those out first, and then we'll come back. Georgia, be more happy of herself. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Christy, yes. Julie, yeah, exactly. Yes, hi, Jennifer from Michigan. Danielle, you do the same thing. Thank you. Be more positive and realize that she is loved. Yes, that's great and gorgeous. I'm not sure who you're talking about, but I love that you're saying this. Donna, judging how to feel the amount of time going by, underestimating how long things take to do or finish. Right. Talia, the story of my life. Jessica, my child gets distracted and then doesn't have enough time. Hi, you're from New York. Nice to have somebody from the East near me. We used to give her information. Shauna, I've got like 3 handwritten calendars, 1 electronic, and spend 4 hours looking at for the perfect calendar template. Glad I'm not alone with how I feel. This is normal. Missy, my job is very random and on call, so it's very hard to have a consistent schedule. That's so challenging. And Tina, oh, I've missed you. It's been months since I Zoomed. So glad you're here. Welcome back. So one of the things that's, hard, if we, for me, like, I overestimate how much I can do in a given amount of time, and then I underestimate how long things take. So I'm not always good at saying, oh, I have to do this and this and this and this, so I have more on my list than is possibly human to do. So it's not even a question just of prioritizing, like, what's urgent and important. And urgent, of course, has to do with time and pressure. And I have a book review that's due today by 5, and you'll be sure that when I'm finished this Facebook Live, I'll be typing away very frantically because it took more time to read the book than I thought, blah, blah, blah. So what we want to do is to try to set up some routines with some foundations of things that can ground us in those routines. My friend Jessica McCabe calls those time pillars, which I really like. It's like a pillar that we can sort of move ourselves around. We also want to kind of think about how we like to work. Do we like to start with something easy and warm up and then do something harder? How much time are we estimating for the easy thing or the harder thing? Are we working a little bit and then checking our email and getting distracted? These are all things that interfere with our concept of time. And an author that I recently read called it the shredding of time. So you have 20 minutes for a break. Right? You're at work, you have maybe let's say a 30-minute lunch break. And on your lunch break, you want to eat, and you also want to check your messages, your texts. You might want to look at your personal email. And every time you do each of those things, you sort of shrink your time that's available to you, actively shrinking your time. And she calls it shredding in a way, because if you're talking on the phone or you're texting while you're supposed to be giving yourself a break, there's no break that's actually involved. What's involved is this sense of like, where'd all my time go? Let's see. Tina, I waste time thinking and planning and can't follow through. Georgia, I try to do a model for some activity that she used to replicate and see what's around. Great. Huge lists, Missy, yes. And then I get down on myself because I can't do all my million of tasks. Really? Literally? This is my list. Like, who can do this list? I do have a few lines crossed out, which is great, but it's an impossible list. Christy, I'm very good at persuading people to be lenient with me when I'm late. Now I realize that I've made the exception the rule. FYI, the airport is the only place I found my persuasion doesn't work. Go figure, LOL, I was shocked. The thing about lateness, and I do want to say this because I run late more than I would like, is owning it and predicting it. Like, if you know that you're running late. So I basically, on Tuesday, they changed all the locks in my building. So I couldn't get in my office because the key to get in my office was in my office, locked in my office. This made no sense to me, and I was quite upset because I was standing in the hallway with my client and my coffee and my computer ready to get started, and I couldn't get in my office. So I went downstairs because my client said, I saw some people talking by the scaffolding on the side of the building. So I was like, okay. So I go downstairs, and by some miracle, the man who runs all of the maintenance in my building was there. And I said, Bob, I'm so happy to see you. I could give you a hug. And he's like, that's okay. Too muchness over here. So he said, that's okay. And I said, well, I can't get into my office and I have a client. And he said, oh, no problem. I'll let you in. And he walked right up and let me in, and we figured it out. But I was now 10 minutes behind in how I budget my time for my therapy sessions. So I had to run. So I started running late, because I have to give this person the right amount of time, and I have to give the next person the right amount of time, and the person after that. So I emailed the people and said, I'm running 5 minutes late. I just want to let you know, so that they could plan accordingly. My stress level, super high. Their stress level, hopefully lower. So you can't hear me. David, can other people hear me? I hope you can hear me. I'm hoping that you guys can hear me. All right, so enough about sort of the ways I struggle with time and the ways in which you actually also struggle with time. So that is, here we are all together. So understanding and using time appropriately is a key executive functioning skill that takes practice and happily responds well to direct instruction. So, of course, time management affects other executive functioning skills like planning, initiating, being able to sustain your attention towards a goal or persisting toward a goal, and motivation. It also affects organization. And many adults really want to succeed and to manage their time more effectively, but we're kind of derailed by our natural ADHD challenges with distractibility, focus, or perseverance. I recently read a statistic that I thought was very interesting, which is Dr. Russell Barkley, international expert on ADHD, said about 8% of the general population struggles with time management, and 98% of people with ADHD struggle with time management. So because we can run on this now, not now brain, like I can plan to do things, but then when I'm in it, I don't know if this happens to you, but I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. I want to figure out the source for this article. And I then start to get the source of the article, and then I want to download the article, and I'm away from the first thing, right? So we struggle with these now, not now internal clocks that are just constantly a little bit off. And so we may not grasp the difference between 15 minutes or an hour. I can feel the difference in time, but I feel also an internal pressure to get stuff done. And these two things kind of work against themselves. So we want to kind of cultivate the nuances that help us feel time and be able to plan more effectively. So we do two things with time that don't really work. We either underestimate, again, how long something takes, and then we rush to complete it at the last minute, racing to finish it, using cortisol, adrenaline to get us through. Or we overestimate how long something will take, feel overwhelmed, the task looks like it's, Mount Everest, and we can't start at all because that's going to take so much time and I only have an hour, so I'm not even going to get started. So both of these patterns can drive people, really crazy and make you feel very bad about yourself. Let's see. We used to prepare a daily planner the day before. That's very helpful. Georgia says, indicating the time of each activity and the time the activity occupied. Yes, this is actually key. You want to start to learn how to estimate what you're doing by by noting when you begin and when you end, and then you have a sense. Actually, it's going to take me this amount of time instead of that. Shauna says, horrible with consistent behaviors, horrible memory, anxiety, hyperfocus, skipping from task to task, or simply remembering things that need to be done, and somehow it feels like I've checked that task off my list. So Shauna, I'm giving you a super big hug because I want you to reframe horrible into challenged. Horrible lets me know how badly you feel about yourself around this and the shame which we all can feel. Challenged is less pejorative, and we want to try to be our own allies in managing time. And there's so much shame around it. Shame if you're late and people think you're disrespecting them because you're late, not really because you just don't manage time very well. So it's important that we try to be kinder to ourselves around this. Christy says yes. Shauna says that's me. Danielle, that's me to a T. Christy, overwhelmed and then paralyzed. Yes. So this task looked like it's going to be impossible. It's going to take 4 hours to do when it may only actually take 45 minutes because we're not estimating it or we can't break it down. So I'm just going to do this part of the task in this given amount of time that I have, leave myself some Post-its, little, breadcrumbs to help me get back to it when I return. Nisi, I'm ADHD and OCD. Even though I'm medicated for both, it's a push and pull struggle inside of my head. Of course it is. It is really a challenge. Jane says, overwhelm is my current challenge. Hi, Heather. Nice to see you. Attitude is sharing some planners. Jessica says we set alarms to help us leave the house on time. Okay, yes to the Post-its. Post-its are great, but you could also have a wall of Post-its that can really drive you crazy. So what we want to do is figure out how to break things down into doable chunks with time attached to those chunks. And this can be very helpful. So this time timer can be helpful, like I'm setting it for 15 minutes, and when it goes off, I have to stop. I'm going to leave myself a couple notes or words or something that I can, so when I come back, I can get back into it. And I'm going to allow for that transition time. Okay, we need some buffer time, right? Time between going from one thing to another. So one thing that I've learned is that, I live in a relatively small town in Western Massachusetts, and it really takes about 5 minutes to get everywhere. But if I think in my head, oh, it only takes 5 minutes to get everywhere, guess what? I'm late all the time. So I double it. It's going to take me 10 minutes. And then I'm mostly on time, and then I feel slightly better. So let's think about this for a second, because these alarms can be helpful, but it doesn't help if you have a million alarms, because you're just going to be, what's going to happen is it's going to start to trigger your adrenaline and your cortisol, because it's like danger, 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 and then you're going to feel stressed, and then your ability to manage time is going to get worse. So what we want to do is, first of all, shift our point of view about time. Most people think about time from the front end. Oh, it's 4:18 and I have to be somewhere at 5. What can I do during that amount of time? So that actually is very frustrating. This approach increases stress, it decreases your productivity, and it leads to underestimating how long things take. Instead, we want to flip your perspective and work backwards. Backwards design, which means we're going to start with the end goal and we're going to allocate time accordingly. And so this means that you sit down in advance, you review what you're trying to accomplish and how things actually take. So how long things actually take, excuse me. So for example, if your kids need to be at school by 7:30, then you have to work backwards. It's going to take you 15 minutes to make and clean up breakfast, so that's 7:15, and it's going to take you 15 minutes to drive there, so that's 7, and it's going to take a half hour to get them up and dressed and get their medication, and luckily you make the lunch the night before, so you don't have to deal with that, and you pack the backpack. So around 6:30 is 6:20 probably is when you need to wake them, so that you have a little bit of a cushion. So this is how we have to do it, and we have to actually be kind of hard on ourselves. How long does it actually take me to get dressed in the morning? Is it actually 15 minutes, or is it more like 25 because I like to play around with my clothes, or I lie in bed for an extra 10 minutes because I don't feel like getting up? Whatever it is, let's be honest with yourself. So the first thing that we want to do about time is be honest, okay, with yourself. No shame, just being honest, right? Backwards design benefits you because it teaches you how to develop the ability to sequence events and improve your planning and prioritizing. But you're not gonna, this is not always something you can figure out on your own. Do you have a coach? Do you have a partner? Do you have a friend or a therapist who can really help you work with this? Here you are now. Hopefully you're getting some good stuff about how to manage your time. One thing that I have found to be very important to me in my time management challenges is to have compassion with myself, because I can be pretty nasty to myself about being late or squeezing too much in, and the stress that I feel. And what I have to do is say something to myself like, this is something that I'm just not wired well for, and I didn't learn this skill because my mother wasn't wired well for it, and my father wasn't either. And so no one was there to teach me. And I know I'm like a grown adult, so I can't blame my parents. So, I didn't learn this early on. I'm not particularly wired for it. So this is something that's going to be a challenge for me probably until the day I die. And instead of being mad at myself for it, I'm going to accept it. I'm challenged by time and time management. Okay, what are we going to do to work with it? So let's see what we have here. I associate shame and not being a good mom, employee, wife, or person because my mind is challenging. Yeah, we really want shame says you're not good enough and you can't do this well, and so you're a bad person. And guilt says I'm a good person, but I did something that I regret. And we really want to look at the standards that we're using that we compare ourselves to, because they're probably not realistic. So many alarms, the clock, yes. And we of course want to use analog clocks. I even set my iWatch to an analog clock. Why? Because you can actually see time move and you can see how much time has expired. I know my arms are like, what are you doing, Sharon? But you can see how much time has expired and how much time is left in the hour. And that's much more helpful than having numbers because you don't see anything. And time, and people with ADHD, it has to be connected visually. Heather says overstimulation is a big hindrance being ADHD, OCD, excuse me. It takes me hours to come back around and focus once I've been set off and agitated and can't even begin to focus. So Heather, for you, what I want to encourage you to do is to come up with a list of things that can help you soothe yourself so it doesn't take you hours. Like if you get distracted and you notice that you've drifted off, what happens is we don't always notice when we drift off, right? It's when we come back from the drift and we're like, whoa, I was totally in another place thinking about something else. That's the moment where we have to have tools. What are the tools we're going to use to help us reintegrate into what we're doing? And if I'm a little bit bleary-eyed, what can I do to take a little break and come back? What is going to soothe me and get me back on track and grounded? Different sounds for different matters. I love that idea, Georgia. Okay, all of this is me, but I don't have adrenaline. I had both adrenaline glands removed, have severe OCD, ADHD, and anxiety, so always feel the struggles, running late, and just upset with myself. Then everyone just says, oh, you're always late, not understanding. This is so moving to me and painful at the same time. I have to tell you that I worked with a girl once. She was in 8th grade, and she had an auditory processing issue. She had ADHD and she was dyslexic, and she had anxiety. And so she would sit at the lunch table and people would be having these conversations, like across the table from her, someone would say something, and she really could not hear what was going on because it was noisy in the cafeteria and it was distracting, and it was like too much sound. She got overwhelmed. And so she would say, what? And they were like, I'm not even talking to you, or, ugh, you weren't listening, I'm not repeating it. And so she actually, we kind of staged a little intervention for her. She was having a sleepover with some of her best friends, and we decided, she decided actually, and we role played how, to tell them that she has this problem in noisy situations, noisy places, where she can't exactly hear what people are saying. And so when she says, I didn't hear you, it's not, I'm not paying attention. It's like, I couldn't hear you. Or maybe sometimes I wasn't paying attention. And I'm working on it, but I can't always control it. And, could the person who's sitting next to me just repeat something if I don't hear it? And when she explained it to them that way, that there was this biological basis for her struggle, her friends, 8th graders, said, wow, we'll try to do that. Sometimes we might get frustrated, but we can definitely try. So we want to remember that if people are always saying, oh, you're always late, and they're not understanding, then we have to educate them. I am late and I have tools that I'm trying to use, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And if I'm running late, I will text you that I'm running late. But then we have to give a fair estimate of when we're going to arrive. And we want to reassure people that our lateness isn't out of disrespect for them or for their time. It's because we have this switch that is just kind of broken. Thank you, Georgia. Christy, I missed Boston last week due to missing my plane. I've thrown away 6 to 10 figure year income opportunities and 1 7-year income opportunity. That sounds really, really hard, Christy. Let's see. No one yet. Great, Doc. Honesty is definitely a struggle because I lie because I want to do better. Right. So you don't have to raise your hand, but how many of you have maybe altered the truth a little bit or stretched the truth because you feel bad about what the reality is? The problem with that is people get mad at you, not just because of the reality, but then because they know you're lying and you're not being accountable for what's really going on. When we're accountable, it changes the conversation from one of shame and failure to honesty and kind of a learning opportunity. And so we really want to think about that with people. Christy, definitely, but I have extra compassion for others. Right, so you can be compassionate to somebody else, but to yourself, you're wagging that finger, yelling at yourself. Rebecca, hi. As a teacher and a mom, this is a huge problem for me. We backward design in education and it works. I can see what doing this with time would work also. Yes, it really does. Thank you, Christy. And thank you, Marcy. Jen, I tend to mentally shut down because I feel like I will never be successful with managing time. Okay, so Jen, I want to tell you something that my high school French teacher said to me. Petit à petit, l'oiseau fait son nid. Little by little, the bird builds its nest. Okay, so you may never be successful at managing time in a way that someone who is neurotypical or doesn't have issues with time management is. You're not aiming for that. You're not aiming for global success. You're aiming for progress. You're aiming for a piece of progress. And then you hope, and you can ask the people in your life around you to say, hey, thanks, you were ready on time. Or I really liked how you gave me a warning so that I wasn't waiting around and getting frustrated. Yes, visually, yes. I can feel the drift coming on beforehand. Christy, that's fantastic. A lot of people can't. And so when you can feel that drift coming, what are your options? Because the drift is coming because you need a mental break. And this is because we sit down and we expect ourselves to focus on something for 30, 50, 90 minutes, 2 hours, when we actually really can do 20. Okay, or we can do 45, and then we need a break. And so the drift is coming because you're not engaged. What you're doing isn't engaging, which means you have to break it down into time blocks that you can actually focus on and attend to, or the drift is coming because you're tired, you're hungry, you need a glass of water, you've used up the fuel in your brain. That's okay too. We want to identify before the drift comes, like when you're starting to feel bored or tired or, oh God, I really would like to go outside. It looks so nice and I've been in here forever. Give yourself 10 minutes. Walk down the street and come back, and then leave yourself those breadcrumbs about where you are right now so you can come back into it. Heather, my therapist recommends sounds for trigger release. Such as soon as I know I'm triggered, I spin my fidget ring that clicks and focus on the calming. Believe it or not, hearing the clicking noise when I could make myself do it through my own agitation, it actually helps my brain switch to wind down mode, so to speak. My therapist uses a bell. How to deal getting so discouraged. So can you say more about that, please? When you say how to deal getting so discouraged, I'd like to know what you're discouraged about. That would be great. Christy, amen. Thank you. Jamie, overwhelmed with tasks at home. I start things and then don't come back to them or forget them completely. I have learned when I cook to only concentrate on that. Actually, that is a great intervention because we want to do one thing at a time. One thing at a time is one of the keys to successful time management because it's that shredding. You know, I'm going to cook and I'm going to talk on the phone, or I'm going to cook and I'm going to help my child with their homework, or I'm going to cook and listen to a podcast, and then I'm going to get the steps of my recipe kind of messed up. One thing at a time. Our brains are not wired for multitasking, much as we would like that. Applying it to something else is different. I have hyperfocus and time blindness. Small tasks, huge, because I see all of the details. I tend to get more done when I procrastinate because I can't overthink things. Right, because you're under the gun and you've zoomed in. So if you know that you are somebody who is over-focused on the details, that means you just actually need to zoom out a little bit. You're too close. And you get more done when you procrastinate because you can't overthink things, because you actually have to complete the thing. That's what I mean by you're zoomed in. You need to get this done. There's pressure. But in general, when small tasks look huge, it's because we're standing at the base of a sequoia tree and it looks really big instead of being zoomed out to see the sequoia tree from an airplane where it just looks like the same as all the other trees. You're welcome, Catherine. It's very frustrating to have so many problems and have a young one to care for as a single mom, of course. Always reassure them of that. Devastating, not exaggerating. Yes. Destiny, I'm always late and now my life is a mess. My heart is broken and it's like my brain has shut down. I can't even function and I can't hear others because noises, either I cancel them out or I get overwhelmed. I get locked out of doctor's offices because I'm late or forget. People get so mad or irritated by me. So first of all, Destiny, I want you to know that everybody in this community is here with you and you are not broken. In fact, my friend Tamara Rosier wrote a wonderful book called Your Brain's Not Broken. Check it out. We want to help you by focusing on one thing about yourself you'd like to change. One thing about your time management. I want to get to doctor's appointments on time. How many do you need? How many warnings do you need? Do you need a banner notification a day before, an hour before? What's going to work for you? 20 minutes before so you can get in your car. I want you to think about what you need. Nessie, yes. Marlo, all the time. They don't understand the difficulty involved. Jobs do not want honesty, though. Well, yes, okay. They don't want you to be honest because they don't want to actually deal with the challenges that you're facing, but they don't want you to lie either. So you're going to have to find some way to discuss your challenge without lying, but without revealing too much, because there's a difference between sort of oversharing, of course, and letting people know what they need, right? So oversharing and appropriate revealing. Let's see. You're welcome, Christy. Destiny, I've been guilty of that, but even though I say I just can't be on time, I don't want to give a time because I can't promise anything. Right. So it might be helpful for you to, when you have to do something with someone, to maybe have them pick you up so you can be met where you are, or to give a small window, like I'll be here there between 5 and 5:10 or 5:15, so that you have a little bit of room to move around. So like a window of arrival maybe, instead of a specific time. And maybe you'll get there and the person won't be there because they expected you to be late and you showed up on time. Carolina, yes, progress, how to overcome anxiety about a task. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's see. I still fail to heed the warning. But by being honest, you will find jobs that want you and your schedule, and you don't set yourself up for shame. I understand the struggle of also not having that option or choice, though. Don't give up. Keep going. Thank you, Heather. That's lovely. You're welcome, Christy. Marcy, I use timers now. 25 minutes for drift days and 45 minutes for my powerhouse days. I love that. I mix up my tasks by alternating desk, active, schedule, etc. I schedule in a lunch break, meditation. Wonderful. Marcy, and for drift days, tapping helps me manage anxiety about drifting. Tapping on something or EFT tapping, I'm curious. One thing at a time, one thing at a time. I'm a shredder. Bad, LOL. One thing at a time isn't socially rewarded. Okay, so Sarah, here's the thing. When you have a neurodivergent brain, an ADHD brain, you live in a world of people who and the world is organized for people who don't have that. When you have troubles with time, you live in a world for people who don't have troubles with time. So what we want to do is not worry so much about social rewards, but figure out how we are going to fill our own cup when we actually arrive at something that's close enough to being on time to what you had hoped for. I want to write on the wall of my living room. So one thing you could do is a series of Post-its about, like a wall of wonderful. Like, what are the things that are going well, or when do you actually follow through in a way that you'd like? Tiffany, I have power cleans with my kids using this timer method. If we're all really out of it, we just pick up as much as we can in 15 minutes. I love this. I love this. I actually recommend this to many families. You just turn it on and see how much you can pick up in a certain amount of time. More productive days, we can go up to an hour. It's amazing. Fantastic. Thank you, Tiffany. You're welcome, Jamie. Destiny, calendars and big board schedules in my house had usually helped me. I started to feel like a rock star, and then I'd reorganize it quite a bit. But if it slips, it's hard to get back. I always have to do multiple things at one time, so I can't keep track of only one thing. I get bored and impatient, so I don't get much done. I can't even take a bath. So, okay, so Destiny, here's the thing. You actually have figured out some things that will help you. And the question is, that you start on them, and then you sort of have a slip. Okay, don't get mad at yourself. Don't criticize yourself. Say, okay, I've had a little slip back. How can I get back on? When you fall off your bike, you get back on. You fall off the horse, you get back on. It's the same thing with managing time. And what you might want to do is to set one of those time pillars that Jessica talks about as, like on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. is when I take my bath. So that you can arrange things around that. Denise, I just ordered an analog clock for downstairs. It works for me, so my son might benefit from one too. Fantastic. You are a whole unique being. You are, for sure. Let's see. I use reminders but tend to ignore and do something else. Right, so I use reminders that actually really work. And the way that they work is that I have more than one of them. So you might need an alarm clock here and your phone to go off over there. And if the alarm clock, your phone here and your alarm clock over there, so you actually have to get up and go to the alarm clock, which would help you kind of move into the next activity. If you're ignoring reminders and the reminders you're setting aren't working, or the sounds aren't working, they're just not grabbing you. Destiny, if I have 10 minutes before a reminder, I'm good, but anything after 30 minutes, I forget. So that's good to know about yourself. So one of the things that's challenging for a lot of people with ADHD, or that doesn't really coalesce until the late 20s, is metacognition, self-evaluation. How am I doing? Self-awareness. And so what I hear from a lot of your comments is actually a lot of you have insight about how you don't manage time the way you want to, which can actually be flipped into how you want to manage time. Okay. Oh, you needed that oversharing a bit. Okay, great. That's a great idea. I always give a 30-minute window, never exact. Perfect. Messia, oh my God, that made me anxious just thinking about someone picking me up. Okay, not the solution for you, but maybe for someone else. Marcy, I started practicing focused meditation where I only pay attention to my breath. I heard a speaker explain that it is a skill, not a talent. It is a skill and it takes practice. That got me excited, so I started practicing 1 minute. Then I worked up to 3, and now I'm noticing that I'm able to focus on one task and recoup when I wander. That is wonderful. Wonderful. I'm a big fan of meditation. Insight Timer or Headspace are great ways to get started so that you can just spend some time with yourself breathing or doing a visualization that will help bring you some internal sense of space that you can then apply when you're working on something and feeling stressed. Christy, yes, thanks Heather, bless you all. Marcy, EFT tapping, yeah, that's what I was thinking, that can be useful. Christy, okay. Sarah Lee, oh, I was let go by my job, that's why I state that. I'm sorry, Sarah Lee. Do you feel like it was just not the right fit? I think there's a saying that says when a door closes, a window opens. Might be Emily Dickinson, I'm not sure. But, is this a window that has opened for you? Georgia says, great. Christy says, oops, chalkboard paint, a great way to write on the wall and change is needed. Fabulous. I love this idea. Yeah, my daughter has a whole wall in her room of chalkboard paint that they've decorated because they're an artist, but I like the idea of using it to write on. That's fantastic. And Sarah says, in such a toxic environment that I didn't understand, I was diagnosed with cancer and let go. Very discouraging. Sarah, there is everything wrong with those people. Everything wrong. It was toxic. You had cancer and you were let go. This is not the place for you. There is a better place for you out there. I am 150% sure, where people will accept you and make you feel valued and not let go because you're sick with an illness like cancer. Okay, I got a little overactivated there because that really pisses me off. Heather, I love, love, love my dry erase boards. Oh, they're so good. So good. Heather, I find my child's school criticizes me worse than my child for being late. What are some positive ways to have a conversation with them to express the root problem as well as ask for understanding? Please help with this. Okay, so, criticism is not, the kind of criticism that you're receiving is not helpful. It's just making you feel bad. So what I would do is sit down with somebody who is criticizing you and really state the reality, which is that I struggle with time management. I have a lot of alarms and systems set up, and I'm doing the best I can to get here on time. I might need a little bit of a bigger window than other people. And how can that happen? Or, if my son is late one day, because he also, perhaps, I don't know if this is true, but maybe your son has ADHD, and then you're dealing with 2 people who struggle with time management. And I would just be honest, like, I'm working on it, we're getting some help and support. How can we work together? How can we collaborate on this problem? Because they're just wagging their finger and telling you how you're wrong, and that's not actually teaching. There's no skills. There's no solution in that. Marcy, thank you about the reminders not getting my attention. I will play with reminders and experiment more. Yeah, I know people who have like a horrible train whistle. Horrible, that's my adjective, because that train whistle would drive me crazy. But it might work for me because it drives me crazy, right? So something like that. Dot, what if the reminder goes off, but I don't want to do the task, or I want to stop a task? We have to actually be able to say to ourselves, my reminder is my guide. I am going to stop because my reminder is telling me. And if you need a reminder that has to remind you, that is a first reminder, do a first reminder. I often on my phone set two notifications. One that's maybe, a day before if I need that, or one that's like 2 hours before, and one that's 30 minutes, or one that's 30 minutes and one that's 10 minutes. So think about setting more than one reminder for yourself so that the first reminder lets you know that you're heading into a time period where it's going to be limited. Heather, love Headspace. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. It went very fast. Julie, I found that I was not the best candidate for meditation. I was frantic to get out of that room. So a lot of people with ADHD, meditation doesn't work. For me, I love yoga. That works because my body is moving, and when my body is moving, it helps my brain clear. I have, during COVID, I started to meditate more regularly, and I really like meditations that have a visual component to them. And when I do meditations with people, I offer a visual component because I find that for a lot of people with ADHD, that is engaging and it helps them sort of settle. Destiny, I have 5 kids, single mom, so my biggest struggle is enjoying and structure, and my oldest is autistic. He is complete opposite, needs structure, and everything has to be on time. I drive him nuts. It's a struggle, but we communicate well. I'm glad to hear that. I think, he can actually be your teacher in this, in a way that he can help you with structure, and you can be his teacher in helping him with flexibility. Michelle, hi. For many years, beginning when my boys were little, I've tried to make a weekly and monthly schedule, but I can't ever seem to follow it. It was always an ambitious schedule, but the things were important to me. Most of them were about the kids. Nevertheless, I still continue to try to set a schedule, even though my boys are grown and the schedule has obviously evolved. I'm still struggling with sticking to it, although I feel it's the only way I can cope, find balance, and be relaxed. Dot says, amen. Ursia, nice to see you. We're talking about time and time management. Destiny, I used to meditate and it was wonderful. I need to push it back in my life. So Destiny, one thing that might help is if you set your alarm for like 5 or 10 minutes earlier than you actually need to wake up, and then you can squeeze it in right there. Christy, I love your shirt and glasses. Just saying, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is one of my favorite shirts. Feeling flowers today, so that's how it happened. Definitely a better place for you. Sorry to hear you went through that. Firing someone because they were diagnosed with an illness is illegal, by the way. Thank you, Carolina. I had the same thought. They should have offered medical leave. I 100% agree that the company is hella toxic. Let's see. We're going to have to stop. Oh my gosh. We have really run out of time. This is such a great conversation. So Heather, I'm a widowed mother of 2, 17 and 7. I'm sorry for your loss. Both my children have been diagnosed with hereditary ADHD. They're just like me in time management, and I desperately want to teach them better, which is why I'm here. Thank you so much. You're welcome. I'm once again going to put in this little downloadable for you so you can, about routines and how that it can be helpful. This is always recorded, so it's available to watch again later. You're welcome. Dot, I do set multiple reminders, but it is difficult to get started or stop a task. If I was trying to finish, I don't finish my question too. Let's see, Christy, my son has autism. What do you do when you're autistic, ADHD, and your needs are conflicting? That's a really great question, Ashley, and I'm gonna take this down so we could maybe have a Facebook Live about that. In the meantime, I want to thank all of you for being here. This was a fantastic Facebook Live. I really appreciate all of your comments and your openness and your honesty. It's really moving to me. Let's see. Susan is asking if Attitude could post a reminder in the morning or the day before. I'll ask them about that. Yes. So maybe it seems like part two of this conversation would be the anxiety and depression that accompanies time management issues and struggles with following a schedule. You're absolutely welcome to contact me through my website, www.drsharonsaline.com. I'll put that here. Okay. What did my French teacher teach me? My French teacher said, petit à petit, l'oiseau fait son nid. Little by little, the bird builds its nest. That's what I'm going to leave you with today. And we can thank Madame Rollin for that, wherever she may be, if she's with us or not. I want to thank you for showing up. This was a very dynamic, exciting session with so many interesting ideas and a lot of revealing about where you're struggling and also where you're succeeding. Please remember, we can change one thing at a time. So look at one aspect of time management that you could tweak and start there. The goal is progress, not perfection.